Billy Blue, my knight in shining brindle. Welcome to another episode of A Poet Reads to Write. Today, you've caught me at a fantastic time. I am feeling so ecstatic. I, of course, have just had that wonderful video uploaded onto YouTube, looking at the building and my living with my precious Billy Blue in my tiny home. Rassa and Bryce from Living Big in a Tiny Home. You have made an old man and his precious hound so ecstatic and joyful. I feel $1 million. As that video went live onto YouTube, a lot of viewers noticed that my precious Billy was looking a little bit stiff and sore in his back end. And yes, that is quite true. I have been told by a vet, an animal doctor who worked closely within the racing industry, that a dog like Billy that has done a lot of racing, they have very rarely lived past about the age of 10. And my Billy is almost 11. I don't know what I'm going to do when I have to say goodbye to him. It's a pickle. I promise I won't make him suffer to keep me in a good, mental state of mind. Billy's health and well-being, living a pain-free life is much more important than that. That dog just means so much to me, and I owe Billy so much. He has literally saved my life. But a lot of viewers on that wonderful video on the channel Living Big in a Tiny Home, a lot of viewers pointed out that one of the things I might be able to do for Billy to help him was to buy some turmeric. And I'd never heard of this before, but I've done a little bit of research on it, and several viewers pointed this out to me. So as you can see, I've raced out to the shops here where I live, and I bought myself a kilo of ground turmeric. So I'm just putting a teaspoon of this into each of his, his morning meal and his evening meal. So he's getting 2 teaspoons of turmeric now every day, and hopefully he might get a little bit of relief. He's in really good nick for a dog, as I said, that is almost 11. He is in really good nick. But in Australia, we've had a very cold and quite wet winter. So maybe it's also to do with that cold and the wet that's really getting into his bones and giving my poor old boy a little bit of pain to get through. And the other thing about my Billy, he can't poop unless I take him for a walk. That beautiful, precious dog. That's just what he's got used to. He can't poop in the backyard. If he needs to go to the toilet, he needs to go for a walk. So I have to walk him, 3 times every day. All of the walks, the first walk before breakfast is around 40 minutes long. And then walks 2 and 3 are between 20 and 30 minutes. Along, as flat and even as ground as we can find it. So yes, that's the rhythm of my life, living with this precious hound. So thank you, all those wonderful people that have got me onto the turmeric. I'm onto it, and he's having some every day now with his meals, so hopefully this will make some big difference. We're also coming towards the end, I guess, of winter, so hopefully in Australia within the next month or so things will start to warm up a little bit, and I'm sure that will help him as well. But thank you for all that care. I'm onto it. Billy's well-being is everything to me. I owe that precious hound so much. He has saved my life. All right. I've had a lot of good luck just recently, as well as working as a poet, a book reviewer, and as an editor. and as a writer of literary essays, I work as an editor, and I also write blurbs for other people's books, those commendations on their back cover. And I've just had this book come to me. This is by a he's a retired professor of poetry at Melbourne University, and he's just written this collection of haiku called The Soundless Sound, and it came out with the American publisher called Red Moon Press. He's a wonderful poet called Grant Caldwell. As I said, the retired professor of poetry at Melbourne University here in Australia, and he got me to write the blurb for this wonderful little collection of haiku, and he's just sent me this thank you gift. The book that's just come out is hot off the press. So it's just absolutely marvellous. So I've had a lot of wonderful things go well for me at the moment. I'm feeling quite ecstatic. But if you want a lovely collection of haiku by the American publisher Red Moon Press, and this is absolutely beautiful. A collection of haiku by the Australian Melbourne poet Grant Caldwell. The other thing that's happened recently, I write a lot of book reviews. So at the beginning of every year and then spaced out throughout the year, publishers send me books and I choose which ones I would like to write my reviews on. I get sent anywhere between sort of 20 and 50 books quite often in a year. And usually I write somewhere between a dozen and a couple of dozen reviews over a 12-month period. And recently I've just been sent these two wonderful new metrical verse translations of Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey. I was sent this one a year or two ago, I think, and this one is just in the last 6 months or so. So I've done this review, and I'm doing this working on this one right now. Emily Wilson, this new metrical verse translation of the Iliad and the Odyssey, I just love. I've always lived with the American classicist translations of Robert Fagles. I've always loved the free verse translations of Fagles. His ear for the dramatic and the vernacular in language, I think it's marvellous. So it's really fun now reading the Robert Fagles alongside the Emily Wilson. And this is what I'm currently engaged on, writing these reviews. The other reason I wanted to share this with you, these are the copies of these books I was sent for my review writing. The Folio Society, and you know my addiction with the Folio Society. The Folio Society tomorrow on August 12, they have a deluxe limited edition coming out of Emily Wilson's metrical verse translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And I'm so excited. I've been saving up my pennies, to collect that little sack of cash I'm going to need to buy these books for, about 6 months. I've been building up with excitement, anticipation, and collecting this little sack of cash together. So tomorrow, sometime, I will be, waiting on the Folio Society website, waiting for these books to go live. And hopefully within 5 or 10 minutes, I will have put my money down and secured my copies. I am so excited. So living alongside these, I will soon, hopefully, have the Emily Wilson metrical verse translations in a limited deluxe edition by the Folio Society. And I promise when they come, hopefully they might be here somewhere around the end of August, when they come, I will do an unhauling video with you, and you can see me unhaul this wonderful hoard of dragon's gold, the wonderful deluxe limited edition of these magnificent books, these new translations by Emily Wilson. I am ecstatic at the moment. Everything's going so well for me. Oh, all right. What am I reading at the moment? I'm currently writing an autobiographical verse novel called Hounded. Those of you who have been, old viewers to my channel will already know I'm the eldest of 6, and my 2 younger brothers both passed away in accidents, and one of them literally died in my lap after a fall in the bush in the Blue Mountains just west of Sydney. and he died in my lap while we were waiting for a helicopter rescue. So I have lived for the last 30 years with a lot of PTSD and severe depression, mainly caused by those two incidents, the passings of my two brothers, which I have written about. So this autobiographical verse novel is really, it's a celebration of their lives, but it is also an interrogation of what it has been for me to live with that PTSD and severe depression over the past 30 years. And it is, of course, me also just sitting in this book, reading books, because an autobiographical, a memoir for me is me sitting in this chair reading. That's what I do with my life. I'm currently writing the last chapter of Hounded, and the thing that's bringing the last chapter together is the umbrella theme, if you like, of death and bereavement. So I've just written a meditation on the symphonies of Gustav Mahler, this romantic Jewish composer who I just love. Has there ever been a composer who stood so close to the graveside? His music, the scale and the drama of a Mahler symphony is just breathtaking. It's mesmerizing music. But he really did write the soundtrack of death. So I've just been doing a big meditation on Mahler. I've been having a festival of Mahler in my tiny home, listening to all the symphonies and reading a lot of books. I have a lot of books over there on Mahler. The best one I found was this one, Arved Ashby, Experiencing Mahler. This is absolutely terrific. I'm not a person with great technical musical expertise at all. I'm a poet. I'm not a composer or a musician. So a couple of the books I bought for this Mahler project have been a little bit difficult for me, a little bit too technical, and have gone a little bit over the top of my old bald head. This book, on the other hand, this has just been a fantastic introduction. It's been absolutely marvelous listening to the symphonies while I spent time reading this book. A wonderful book. If you're interested in an introduction to Mahler, I would really recommend this one. I found this to be absolutely fabulous. It really concentrates on those, the 9 completed symphonies. It has a wonderful chapter at the end on the incomplete 10th symphony that he was, halfway through writing when he passed away. He probably died of a broken heart a little bit in his 50s. He wasn't very old, unfortunately, so he never got to finish that final symphony. And it's on a lot of the song cycles as well. This is a marvelous book, marvelous. And then the other thing that I'm now doing is reading a few memoirs by people that have had to live with bereavement and grief just like I have been forced to do. So I've read recently, I've got this wonderful C.S. Lewis book, A Grief Observed. This is a very poignant, beautiful book that he wrote when his wife Joy died of cancer, after they'd only been married a short time. This is, as you can see, it's a very small little thing. I guess it's a very poignant essay on what C.S. Lewis experienced living with that grief and the way it challenged and unsettled his faith life as well. He didn't chuck in his faith. He continued to be an evangelical Christian to the end when he himself died of cancer. But this is a very poignant, very moving book. And this one by Isabel Allende, a memoir, The Sum of Our Days. This has also been fun to read. Allende lost a daughter to illness over a long time period. And this is a wonderful memoir by Isabel Allende, that wonderful Chilean writer who now lives in the US, of course. This is also a wonderful, poignant memoir of what it is to live with grief. And then the other book that I'm about to start reading is this by the Jewish Welsh poet Dannie Abse. This is called The Presence. I've just started this. He was in a car crash and his wife of almost 50 years marriage. They married for a very long time. It's a beautiful, moving book, this. But his wife died in the crash. And his children got injured as well, his adult children. And Dannie Abse was also injured, but he got out of the crash. So over the years subsequent to the car crash, Dannie Abse has written this very, very moving, very poignant memoir of what it was like to lose his partner, of, so many years of joyful, happy, jubilant love. What is it to say goodbye to someone? Particularly when you haven't had a chance to actually say goodbye. His partner didn't die from cancer like C.S. Lewis's. There was no long illness like Isabel Allende's daughter. So there wasn't a chance to, say goodbye, to prepare oneself. She was ripped out of his life in that crash. So this is a very different type of memoir of what it is to live with grief, unexpected grief that has been thrust into a life. It's a very, very moving book. I'm only just started it, but so far, this is an absolute classic of a read. This is going to be a book I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time with over the next few weeks. And all three of these books I will be meditating on in that verse novel. All right. During my wonderful video with Bryce and Rassa on living big in a tiny house, a big part of that video, we sort of paused for a little while and went over my love affair with Beowulf. And a lot of viewers of that video saw this incredible thing hidden away on my shelf over there, and they wanted a peek inside. They wanted to know, what is this book that I am so excited about? Nearly everyone, I suppose everyone, is familiar with Beowulf. The story of Beowulf, the great Viking warrior, and of his 3 engagements with monsters. Grendel's mother, and then at the end of his life, he had a battle with a dragon. So he had these 3 great contests, these engagements with 3 different monsters. It's an incredible story of adventure, action-packed, evoking that unbelievable Viking world. And of course, the interesting thing about Beowulf, even though it is a story firmly set in the Scandinavian world, it is a Viking story, but of course it is written in Old English. So it's actually seen as one of these bedrocks of Old English poetry. It's an astounding thing. But of course people forget that in the early medieval period, the whole of the north of England, and of course all of Scotland, was part of what was called the Danelaw. It was all firmly part of that Scandinavian world. And the capital of the Danelaw was, of course, that wonderful city in England called York. It was a great Viking city, the capital, if you like, the centre of the Danelaw in the United Kingdom. So this incredible story written in Old English is part of this incredible experience of the Danelaw, of the Vikings in the United Kingdom. So maybe it's time to open this up and show you what is actually inside and what I'm so excited about. Look at this incredible thing here. Oh, it's just marvelous. Folio always do the most miraculous jobs with their books. You get these wonderful slipcases. They've really pulled out all the stops with this one. This is a limited deluxe edition, so I paid quite a little sack of cash for this, but I was so excited to secure it when it came. So you open this incredible slipcase up, look at this, and you've got this amazing book inside. Here it is. This is what I get so excited about. This is my re-engagement with the world. This is what brings me so much joy and wonder. Look at this incredible book, the cover. Oh my goodness. And then you open it up. Look at these end papers. Oh, it is breathtaking. And the end papers, there's a line of poetry which begins in the beginning and finishes at the end. So the end papers at the front and back are actually different, although the art is in that similar kind of style. But you can see the magnificent end papers. Oh my goodness. They pulled out all the stops on this. And then you keep going. you can see here, I'm forgetting to show you this. I've got here the autographs. Janina Ramirez is this incredible medieval scholar in the United Kingdom, and she's written a special introduction for this new Folio Society edition. So I've got the signature here of Janina Ramirez, and then of course there's the signature up here of Clive Hicks Jenkins, who's illustrated the book. And Clive Hicks Jenkins, the other reason why I wanted to show you this, they've employed him also to do the illustrations for the new deluxe limited edition of the Emily Wilson metrical verse translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And I love his style of book illustration. They're absolutely marvelous. So I can't wait to see what he's done with the Iliad and the Odyssey as well. He is the perfect choice for this sort of monumental book illustration. I think he's just marvelous. All right, so turning the pages, here we get the beginning. This is the wonderful, it's a very loose alliterative verse translation by Seamus Heaney, that little Irish gem. Oh my goodness, Seamus Heaney is one of my favourite poets of all time. The other thing I love about Heaney's translation of Beowulf, of course, is that he dedicated this to the memory of Ted Hughes. And Ted Hughes is another English poet I just love. I know, many readers struggle with Hughes because of that relationship with Sylvia Plath and the damage that was probably done to Sylvia Plath. It all ended in tears, and of course then Ted Hughes also lost another wife and a son to suicide. It's a very heartbreaking story, but I love Hughes's poetry. I love his vision, again, like Mahler, the drama and scale to his poetry is mesmerizing. So I really love that Seamus Heaney dedicated this book to the memory of Ted Hughes. And then you keep going. You've got this amazing introduction by Janina Ramirez. You've also got an introduction here by Seamus Heaney, the original introduction that he wrote when the book, his translation was first published. Listen to this. Oh boy. This is just the first bit that I might read to you, so you get a bit of a sense of, what is Seamus Heaney doing to your ear with his very dramatic alliterative, a very loose alliterative verse translation of the original Anglo-Saxon. This is the beginning of the tale. So, the Spear Danes in days gone by, and the kings who ruled them, had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns. There was Shield Chieftain, a scourge of many tribes, a wrecker of mead benches, rampaging among foes. This terror of the whole troops had come far, a foundling to start with. He would flourish later on as his powers waxed and his worth was proved. In the end, each clan on the outlying coasts beyond the Whale Road had to yield to him and pay tribute. This was one good king. Afterwards, a boy child was born to shield, a cub in the yard, a comfort sent by God to that nation. He knew that they had foaled the long times and trouble they'd come through without a leader. So the Lord of life, that glorious Almighty, made this man renowned. Shield had fathered a famous son. Beau's name was known throughout the north. A young prince must be prudent like that, giving freely while his father lives, so that afterwards in age when fighting starts, steadfast companions will stand by him and hold the line. Behavior that's admired is the path to power among people everywhere. Oh, you get a sense, don't you, that, before this tale was written down in that, early, middle, medieval period. You know, before this was written down, it had strong history in that oral tradition. You know, the story is thoroughly Scandinavian. It's a Norse story set within that incredible world of the Vikings. But of course, when it came to be written down in that sort of middle medieval period, it was written down by Christian scribes in a monastery. And so the way we have the tale told to us, of course, is a thoroughly Christian story. It's so interesting. Look at this. Our first meeting with Grendel and the bones in his cave, his hoard of treasure, or the people that he's eaten, the warriors. I think this style of art really suits, you know, it's a monumental book illustration style that really suits this tale. I just think it's marvelous. And you've got so many of these full color page spread designs like this. The other thing with this illustrator is he loves including into the illustration, if you can see that, lettering and words. That's all part of the graphic design that he's come up with. And I think the illustrations are quite breathtaking. So you can see there's quite a few of these large double page spread illustrations like this, all in this type of style. And then there are quite a few places also where you get smaller illustrations in a page of text. And you can see here, you've got on the one side, you've got the Anglo-Saxon. On the other side, you've got Heaney's translation. So you can read along with the old Anglo-Saxon while you've got the modern English translation as well. So it really has, you know, it really puts pride of place, the text. And not only the new translation of the text, but also the original Anglo-Saxon. It really does hone and treasure that. And you can see there's also scattered throughout the book, there are these other smaller illustrations as well. Folio have done just, oh my goodness, look at the gold at the top also to keep the dust off the pages. Although you've also got that incredible slipcase to put it in. It's a marvelous book. Absolutely marvelous. And it also came with this. I've always meant to take this to a framing shop and get this framed and mounted on my wall, and I will eventually do just that. But every time I have some money put aside for this to get it framed and put on my wall, Folio come up with some new project, and I'm saving up to buy more books. So this project, getting this framed on my wall, gets putting behind the times. And now it's going to have to wait even longer because all the money I've got saved up is going to go tomorrow on buying the Emily Wilson deluxe limited editions of the Iliad and the Odyssey. So eventually I will get this framed and put on my wall somewhere, but it's going to have to wait until I've got some spare money. Folio keep bringing out too many things for me. You can see my love affair with Beowulf has been going for a long time. This is actually a very old Folio edition that I bought way back in the 1970s. Somebody gave this to me, when I was just becoming a little bookworm. I would have been very young. I was probably only 10 or 12 when I got this book. So this was right at the beginning of my sort of love affair with books. This is a wonderful, again, this is a free verse translation of Beowulf by Kevin Crossley-Holland. And this is a lovely little thing that the Folio Society have done. You can see I prefer the illustrations in the new one, but these are lovely as well. So this is a lovely thing. And Kevin Crossley-Holland, he's a very vibrant, wonderful writer, a little bit like, you know, the Robert Fagles who did the Iliad and the Odyssey. That's that very loose, free verse translation. Really has a great ear for the vernacular, and Kevin Crossley-Holland does the same here with this. And then of course I've got, you know, my love affair with Tolkien. I've got here the deluxe edition of Tolkien's translation of the tale as well. Tolkien's translation is a very, very close, a real academic's translation of the original story, and his translation is a prose translation. He didn't do it in verse at all. More than half this book is commentary and accompanying essays on Beowulf. Of course, Tolkien, way back in the 1930s, he wrote the really great introductory essay to the academic study of Beowulf, the monsters and the critics. It is, he was the first translator, really academic, to not look at Beowulf simply as a philologist for looking at language and how the English language has changed over 1,000 more years. He wanted to look at the tale as a great heroic imaginative story and to restore it as pride of place in our rich literary imagination. And that essay by Tolkien is still considered today, almost 100 years later. It is still a real touchstone essay in the academic study of Beowulf. So his translation, it's just a prose translation. For my money and ear, it doesn't have any of the vibrancy of the Seamus Heaney or the Kevin Crossley-Holland, but in particular, the Seamus Heaney. If you want a translation of Beowulf, if you've never read Beowulf and you think you would like to get into it, if you love fantasy literature and you think you would love the grand affair of where did fantasy all come from, I would really recommend that you get the Seamus Heaney loose alliterative verse translation. It is magnificent. The Crossley-Holland and the Tolkien are fantastic, but why read the poem in prose if you can read it as proper alliterative verse? There's nothing like the Seamus Heaney rendering of the text. So, here we have it. My love affair with Beowulf. Now you've seen the book, The Monster and the Critics, the wonderful horde, Grendel's horde, and how the end was met with the Viking warrior, Beowulf. I just think this is absolutely marvelous. If you love fantasy literature and you've never read Beowulf, I would really recommend it. And I would recommend that you start with the Seamus Heaney translation. You don't need to buy a grand book like this that'll cost you a small fortune. You can get the Seamus Heaney alliterative verse translation by Faber, in a paperback or in a cheap hardback version. They're easy to get hold of. So I would really recommend that you start with Heaney's loose alliterative verse translation. It is a marvel. Thank you, and bye for now.